Well, spring practice continuing for the Buckeyes. It will wrap up on April 18th with the spring game in Ohio Stadium. Tim May, 97.1 The Fan, and of course the Tim May Show, and our man Adam King. Adam, what do you think Ryan Day's biggest takeaways so far in the spring is?
His biggest takeaway, I'm sure he has a few, but I think his biggest concern is still the running back room. That's the one thing that when I look at the spring game and beyond, I don't think that he's gotten the answers that he wanted to get coming into the spring, and it's by no fault of his own, no fault by Ohio State. We knew having Bo Jackson and Isaiah West out was going to cause some problems. I think we heard the word explosiveness. We've heard that a lot. I think they were hoping Legend Bay could take a big step forward in this spring, and then he gets hurt. So really, the three guys that you were zeroing in on in that running back room, hoping to lean on as your biggest step forward, especially with Arthur Smith. That's the whole reason he's here, is to fix the run game. And I feel like they're probably a little frustrated that they haven't been able to do that. We heard Ryan Day say that, it just without practice, you can't just get up to game speed. It just doesn't work that way. And so I think that's his biggest takeaway right now, is we have to figure out the run game, because when they step on the field after the spring game, the next time is going to be in fall camp. That's 4 weeks away from Texas, and that's going to be the first time they see Bo Jackson go through real action. And we know that Ryan Day and this offense have been looking for Bo Jackson and Isaiah West to be able to make guys miss at the second level. They can get to the second level, but it's turning those 4-yard runs into 10-yard runs that wins you a national title versus, what we saw last year, where if a couple more plays go their way, Ohio State, their season doesn't end in the Cotton Bowl. On
a positive, Tim, and obviously, with Arthur Smith, we can only imagine what the game plan's been like between Ryan Day and Arthur Smith, and they're scheming because they have to hit the ground running.
Yep.
There is continuity, though, with the O-line, and Arthur Smith can get his fingers on that, and they will have an idea what these backs are about, hopefully. But as Ryan Day has said all along, unfortunately, injuries are part of the game.
Yeah, there was some continuity, but when you lose both of your basically proposed, at least, starting tackles, Phillip Daniels and Austin Servell, both of whom returned, but they're not going to take part in big-time contact drills the rest of the spring, because they both had scope procedures. And then, like Adam was pointing out, they not only don't have their top two running backs, but a couple of those guys are banged up. So what are you really seeing out there from day to day? You're seeing some guys having to step up, maybe take advantage of situations like Carter Lowe and Ian Moore at the two tackle spots on Saturday when we got to watch this past Saturday of the Student Appreciation Day. So, yeah, it's kind of hard to see the puzzle coming totally together as spring goes on, but they'll have more of a feel of it going into fall.
No question about that. Ryan Day was asked about Julian Sayin and what a difference a year makes. And,
I think you asked that.
Yeah, well, I wasn't going to give myself credit.
You asked that.
But there's no question the expectations are through the roof for this guy, starting with the head coach, Ryan Day.
It's really interesting because I don't want to say that I know as much as any Ryan Day does about quarterbacks. I'd say I know about 1%. But he talked about command of the offense. Yeah. And that's the one thing I've really noticed from Julian, is that he just looks so much. There's almost a swagger with him when he's leading the offense out there. A command of that huddle that Ryan mentioned every single week last year. Now it seems to almost be second nature. I spent a lot of time on Student Appreciation Day watching him with Arthur Smith and watching how they do the walkie-talkies, which that's new for Arthur Smith here. And they're doing that, and then all of a sudden he just walks in and reads that play and gets to the line. That's the stuff you can't teach. That's the stuff that only comes from a second-year quarterback that you've been. And Ryan Day hasn't had that since C.J. Stroud, and that's got to be really nice and really comforting for him when it comes to this spring, that they can really work on now the more intangible when it comes to the passing attack. And I think there's still room for Julian Sayin to grow there. I think they've allowed for him to really lean into the playmaker style. That word has been thrown around a lot this spring, and so that's something that you also can't simulate in spring practice. So, you want to see him run, but you can only do so much because you don't want your quarterback hit. But I think it's interesting to hear him say that the command of the huddle, he just looks like a different guy out there a year later.
And I think it's without a doubt, come this fall when they're playing, there will be, and Arthur Smith will figure in that, but you look at Julian Sayin, he is going to have to run the ball, and he's not going to be Bo Jackson, but when the opportunity presents itself, and Ryan Day talked about it, the quarterback's going to have to take off.
You mean he's not going to be Lamar Jackson?
Yeah. Well, Bo Jackson, Lamar.
He's definitely going to be Bo Jackson. But, yeah, you just look for him to run a little bit, man, just to get those free yards that offered to you in any game, especially when you have an offense that is so well-rounded in terms of the way they want to attack you, which is what Ohio State is. And all of a sudden, hey, what happened to the quarterback? Oh, he just ran for 8 yards for a first down. That's what you want from him on a more consistent basis. But the main thing they want to do, the main reason people pay the price for the tickets, et cetera, is to see a Julian Sayin stand back there and throw the ball, because that is him at his finest. And, we were talking about a while ago about explosives. He can create explosives. But what we saw in that Student Appreciation Day practice, we're talking about the explosive guys who might be missing from this deal, but Devin McEwen is definitely a blasting cap. I mean, the transfer wide receiver from UT San Antonio. I mean, there's a guy with quicks, et cetera, and has really stepped up as the last couple of weeks have gone on. So there are all kinds of new weapons that Julian Sayin is going to be getting used to over the next couple of weeks and definitely preseason.
And sometimes we forget, folks, he just is a young kid. I mean, this is just his second year of playing football, and everyone says it's a foregone conclusion that enjoy it, this will be his last year. In the world of NIL, I'm not so sure, guys, because, he's still a kid, and the more he develops, the higher he could go.
Yeah, I think if you're a Buckeye fan, you want this to be the last season of Julian Sayin. The dream scenario is to come out of this season and everyone says he's the #1 overall pick. He's the Heisman winner. And Tavien St. Clair, what was funny is Student Appreciation Day. Everybody loves the backup quarterback. Remember that, because the backup quarterback can do no wrong because he's not actually getting in the game. And Tavien St. Clair looked good. I think that's a promising thing for the future. We've got time to talk about that down the road. But you have to feel confident with where you are with Julian Sayin, with Jeremiah Smith. But you touched on it, Tim. The one thing that solidified for me this spring is the confidence in the entire receiver room. Yeah. And the nice deep breath maybe that Chris Henry Jr. can take, because I would have told you walking here in spring practice day 1, Chris Henry Jr. better be ready. He better be ready to take that first snap against Texas, be on the field. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think it's a foregone conclusion that Kyle Parker will be on the field for that Texas game alongside Brandon Ennis and Jeremiah Smith. And so that allows this wide receiver room to have a different element than I expected them to have, which has been a very big positive this spring.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and the way Brock Boyd has stepped up. Yeah. I mean, everybody keeps talking about him being a 3-star. He was a 3-star at South Lake Carroll. I mean, one of the great high school football programs in the country, much less in Texas and stuff. He's played against big-time competition, but he's also got brothers he's played against, his life. So, I mean, the way that guy has stepped up, the wide receiver room, I think, is deeper than they thought it was going to be at this moment. But that's why you bring in a Kyle Parker, because, when they step on the field at Texas, I'm not sure. He may have already played there, but the point is he's already been in those kind of arenas. So you've got experience in those kind of arenas, and you can bring, like Adam's kind of like saying without saying, you can bring Chris Henry Jr. along at his own speed. Mm-hmm. But man, when he's ready to play, he's going to play.
Yes, he is.
All right, so it'll all break down on April 18th in Ohio Stadium with the spring game. Just your thoughts. Obviously, they've got guys banged up. Obviously, Tim and I were around when Mike Tomczak got injured in the spring game. You don't ever want to see that again. What are we going to see? What are the fans going to see in the spring game?
Well, I better not see a single snap from Jeremiah Smith. I'll tell you that. There's no reason to put him out there unless you throw one deep ball to him so the fans can have a good show and then call it a day. Don't need to see much of Julian Sayin. I can't really remember C.J. Stroud's I guess it would have been his junior season, how much we saw of him. But I don't need to see much of him. I think fans should be excited to see Tavien St. Clair. I think you'll get a good look at him. Guys like Brock Boyd can shine. Kyle Parker and Devin McEwen will get a lot of looks. Watch the defensive line. I'm real excited about this Ohio State defensive line more than I was coming into spring. Yep. I think the way that, Quay has stepped up, that James Smith has stepped up, they've filled a big void. Kenyatta Jackson, we know how good he is. Edric Houston looks like he's taking that next step. If I'm a Buckeye fan, I'm wary of the running back room right now, and that's not the fault of their own. That's just injuries. But everywhere else, I feel like the secondary with Earl Little Jr., get an eye on him. He's a star. Everywhere else, I think it's coming out of spring better than I thought they would be coming out of spring.
Yeah.
What do you
Like in
think
that
we're
secondary,
seeing?
you know, Terry Moore was hurt last year at Duke, and he transfers in. Well, is he even going to be ready to go full speed, et cetera? He's caught everybody's eye, for example. I mean, because they're replacing, like Ryan Day said, you don't replace a Caleb Downs, but yeah, you do, really. You got to put 11 out there. And so there are these guys that are really stepping up as this spring goes on. It, you know, will be more obvious maybe in that spring game deal. But that's why I always like to go to the Student Appreciation Day practice, because I think we see a lot more from an offensive, defensive standpoint than we would ever see in a spring game, jamboree, bonanza, whatever they're going to call it. And but the interesting thing is going to be the offensive line filling in for those 2 tackles and seeing some guys come along there. And just like Adam said, another guy that's flashed is John Walker, the transfer defensive tackle from UCF. And Will Smith Jr. On that last play, he almost, now the word's almost, he almost got, this is at the Student Appreciation Day, he almost got to Julian Sayin and made the play, and he looked a lot like his dad making that move. So there are a lot of young men and older men, but haven't played much to watch.
All right, here we go. It is the spring game. What's the headline going to be? What are we going to be talking about? Who's going to be the guy? And we'll all get a shot. Who are we going to be talking about after the spring game?
I think everybody's going to be talking about Brock Boyd and Devin McEwen. I think they're going to circle those 2 guys and say, wow, they were much better than I expected. I think that's 2 reasons. Chris Henry Jr. as well. I think you allowed your stars to shine in that biggest moment. Fans, you know, they're going to throw him some balls. They're going to be impressed by him. But it's going to be zone 6 in this wide receiver room that people feel a lot more comfortable in coming out of the spring game.
What's the talk going to be after?
Well, it's going to be talk. It's going to be whether it's going to be good or bad. How well do those safeties play? Timmons, a young cornerback, how well does he play and stuff? Well, you got to believe Jermaine Matthews and Devin Sanchez are probably going to be the starting corners, but they've got to develop some depth that they really feel good about in the quarterback room. So you might be hearing good or bad talk, but what you're really going to see is, do those defensive ends have a pretty good day against these, quote, backup tackles, you know, who could be your starting tackles? You never know. So there are all kinds of things to watch. Tap sack kind of ruins it all, though. Yeah. The tap sack.
Well, we like I said, we remember Tom Zach. We don't miss anyone injured. Yeah. I think the talk after the game, and we'll see how much Julian plays, if he does or whatever. But the bottom line is, I think people will be talking about the defense. Defense normally has the edge when you start early and everything. I think they'll be talking about,
especially when you practice the way this defense practices with all. They don't care who's up there in front. They're throwing stuff at them.
Yeah, and Matt Patricia, we'll see what he does. We'll see how it goes. But I'm a big fan of Matt Patricia. But I think people will be talking about the defense, and they'll be saying, oh, my goodness, I'm concerned about the offense. But you know what? It's the spring. And you know when it really matters? Come September. This fall in September. All right, he is Adam King. He is Tim May. Check him out, 97.1 The Fan, The Tim May Show. And keep it on 10 TV, 10 TV Plus, and 97.1 The Fan for the best Buckeye coverage there is.